For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
Madam Speaker, I rise and make a point of order against consideration of the rule because the rule contains a waiver of
The
all...
gentleman will state his point of order.
May I finish reading it, Madam Speaker?
She said go ahead and state.
Okay. Contains a waiver of all points of order against the provisions in the bill and amendments made in order by the rule, and therefore it is in violation of Section 426 of the Congressional Budget Act.
Gentleman will state his point of order. The gentleman from Florida makes a point of order that the resolution violates Section 426A of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. The gentleman has met the threshold burden to identify the specific language in the resolution on which the point of order is predicated. Such a point of order shall be disposed of by the question of consideration. The gentleman from Florida and a member opposed, the gentlewoman from New York. Each will control 10 minutes of debate on the question of consideration. After that debate, the chair will put the question of consideration to wit, will the House now consider the resolution? The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I'll be using most of my arguments also from the Congressional Budget Office cost estimate dated January 26, 2009. The CBO and the Joint Committee on Taxation estimated that enacting the provisions in Division B would reduce revenues by $76 billion in fiscal year 2009, by $131 billion in fiscal year 2010, and by a net of $212 billion over the 2009-2010 period. So, combining the spending and revenue effects of H.R. 1, the CBO estimates that enacting the bill would increase the federal budget deficit by over $170 billion over the remaining months of the fiscal year 2009, by the $356 billion in the year 2010, and $174 billion in 2011, and it continues on $816 billion over the period 2009 to 2019. There's a wide range of federal programs here which increase benefits payable under the Medicaid, unemployment compensation, nutrition assistance program, and the legislation would also reduce individual and corporate income tax collections and make a variety of other changes to tax laws. This is basically an unfunded mandate. CBO anticipates that this bill would have a noticeable impact on economic growth and employment in the next few years. Following long-standing congressional budget procedures, this estimate does not address the potential budgetary effects of such changes in economic outlook. But the point that the CBO is making, that this is a huge unfunded mandate, particularly in the Medicaid and unemployment compensation and nutrition assistance program. So with that, Madam Speaker, in light of the provisions in the bill and the amendments made in order by the rule are therefore in violation of Section 426 of the Congressional Budget Act, I do, Madam Speaker, raise this point of order.
Reserve your time.
I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Technically, this point of order is about whether or not to consider this rule and ultimately the underlying bill. In reality, it's about trying to block this bill without any opportunity for debate and without any opportunity for an up or down vote on the legislation itself. I think that is wrong and hope my colleagues will vote yes, so we consider this important legislation on its merits and not kill it on a procedural motion.
Yield.
I will not. We have a long day ahead. Let's not waste more time on dilatory measures. Those who oppose this bill can vote against it on final passage. We must consider this rule, and we must pass H.R. 1 today. I have the right to close, and in the end, I will urge my colleagues to vote yes to consider the rule. Madam Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from New York reserves her time. The gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, I yield such time as you may consume to the distinguished ranking member of the Rules Committee, Mr. Dreyer.
Gentleman from California
Madam Speaker,
is
I thank my
recognized.
friend for yielding, and let me say that I rise in strong support of this effort to raise this point of order. And I will say to the distinguished chair of the Committee on Rules, this 10-minute period of time is when we can debate whether or not this is, in fact, an unfunded mandate that is going to dramatically increase costs. That's what this debate is all about. It's not about simply killing the bill. It's about utilizing a procedure that exists here in this institution, and I hope very much that our colleagues will join with our friend from Florida and ensure that we do address this very, very important issue. And I thank my friend for yielding.
Gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, if, may I continue? The distinguished chairman of the Rules Committee has indicated that this point of order would eliminate debate, not have the opportunity for members to really discuss the rule at all. But I would like to say to her, and she was in the Rules Committee when I came out to present an amendment, when the Energy and Commerce marked up that portion of the stimulus package, we were in session for 12 hours. During that time, we got 6 amendments on the Republican and minority side. It turns out all of these 6 amendments were agreed to completely by the majority. When the bill went to print, when I went to Rules Committee, my amendment was not in there. Either was the gentleman from Pennsylvania or Mr. Blunt's amendment. 3 of the amendments were not included, and we questioned how could this be that out of a full committee markup of Energy and Commerce, we passed 6 amendments and only 3 were put in. Yet the Speaker's office had a sheet there, a fact sheet, which indicated, this fact sheet indicated that all 6 amendments were put in, and all 6 of these amendments show the bipartisanness of this stimulus package. Now, I think what happened on the Energy and Commerce Committee happened in the Ways and Means that happened in the appropriation. So this, in fact, stimulus package is not a bipartisan. You know, reading from the office of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, her fact sheet of January 27, 2009, she says this is a bipartisan, open, and transparent legislative process. It is not, Madam Speaker. And the bills that came out of the Energy and Commerce, 50% were dropped arbitrarily, capriciously, without any comment from the minority. Now, one of those amendments, which was mine, indicated if you're going to give COBRA, which is unemployment compensation for individuals in America, why give them to people who have a net worth of $1 million or $100 million? There was no threshold. So I basically said, if you're going to give COBRA, that is, you're going to ask the taxpayers to pay 65% of the COBRA for anybody unemployed, including a man who, for example, left Lehman Brothers, Bernie Madoff, all those people under the Democrat position in the stimulus package would be able to apply for COBRA and have the taxpayers in my home county have to pay for their unemployment, for their health benefits. So COBRA provides health benefits. They're asking the taxpayers to pay 65% almost indefinitely. And I basically said this should not apply to people that are making $100 million, $10 million and have a net worth of that amount. And Mr. Waxman, who was the chairman of the Energy and Commerce, was kind enough to say, I agree with you, and that should be part of the bill. So my amendment was agreed to. Yes, I'll be glad to.
And I thank my friend for yielding, and I'd simply like to inquire of him again about this procedure through which this committee went. It's my understanding that these amendments were all adopted in a bipartisan way with a unanimous vote in support of these amendments that were later just dropped from the bill that was introduced. And then we have this statement from the Speaker's press office, a fact sheet stating in the Energy and Commerce Committee, 57 amendments were adopted, 43 by Republicans, 6 of which were adopted and incorporated into the bill. Is that correct?